I stood in my new kitchen, running my palm over the cold granite of the bar counter. The morning sun was shining through the panoramic windows, flooding the white laminate with light. 4美元, $235. For the suburbs of Atlanta. This was almost modest. Panoramic windows. My own half-acre lot. 25 minutes from I-285. And all this was mine, even after 3 weeks. It was hard to wrap my head around. Every square foot of this house belonged to me, earned with sweat and blood. Years of humiliation and a secret I hid from my relatives for a decade. The Ring doorbell chimed through the empty room. I glanced at my iPhone. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Punctuality was the only virtue my relatives had when it came to free food and the opportunity to show off. I invited them to a housewarming party. The first celebration in many years. A stupid hope glimmered somewhere inside. Maybe now everything will change. Maybe my success will finally make them see me as a person. What a fool I was. I opened the door. My sister Amanda was whining on the threshold, and her 3 brats were already pushing past me into the house. My parents followed her. Mother looked at the facade with the appraising glance of a real estate agent, figuring out how much she could flip it for. Dad was hovering behind her with a sour face. He couldn't stand it when situations got out of his control. Holy shit. Amanda breathed out, staring at the living room. How much did this cost? Where did she get the money? There was that same note in her voice that I had heard all my life. Like, if I have something, it means I earned it dishonestly. I worked. I founded a cybersecurity company, I said briefly, showing them around the house. Show them the rooms, Mom snorted. Work. You can't buy something like this with work. Especially someone like her. She didn't finish the sentence. But she didn't have to. Someone like you. A family disgrace. Someone who was kicked out at 18 for disobedience. The tour turned into torture. Each room brought forth a new wave of caustic comments and whispers. Amanda's kids ran around like maniacs, grabbed everything with their sticky fingers and mercilessly scuffed the new hardwood floors. I bit my lip. They were children. I reminded myself, it wasn't their fault that their mother hadn't taught them basic respect. I set a small table in the kitchen. When everyone was seated, Amanda's eldest, Tyler, knocked over a glass of juice. The red liquid spread across the snow-white laminate. Oh, Tyler, be careful, Amanda said lazily, without even moving. Your place here isn't very kid-friendly. I grabbed some paper towels and started to wipe up the stain. It shouldn't be like that. I live here alone. That's the problem. Mother butted in with righteous indignation in her voice. So much space and all alone. That's pure selfishness. I straightened up and threw the towels in the trash. Selfishness. This is my house. Mom, it was bought with my money. Amanda exchanged glances with our mother. Actually, we need to talk here. My heart sank. I knew that tone. It was exactly the same when she convinced my parents to give her my college fund. A pregnant woman needs it more. This house would be perfect for us, she continued, nodding at her little demons, who were already drawing on my walls with the Crayola markers they had brought. There's a good school district nearby, and a yard for the kids. And you don't even use half the rooms. I laughed, but no one joined in. They were serious. Are you kidding? This is my house? I bought it. Don't be selfish. My mother snapped. Your sister has 3 children. Why do you need so much space to come back to emptiness every night and remember how alone you are? The words stung. But I had long ago learned not to show it. I need it because it's mine. I deserve it. How Dad finally spoke up. His first words since arriving. How did you even get this? No bank will give you a mortgage. Not with your credit history. With my history. He was referring to the moment I was thrown out on the street. Deprived of everything. Left to survive because I didn't want to follow their script. They didn't know that it was the best gift of my life. You'd be surprised what I'm capable of, I said quietly. Amanda stood up and leaned on the counter. Look, we've already decided everything. The kids like it here. And honestly, it makes more sense for a family to live here than a single person. You can rent our apartment. It's perfect for 1 person. You've decided. Cold anger rose from within, spreading throughout my body. You can't decide anything about my house. Don't be ridiculous. Mother sighed. We want to help. Living alone in such a big house is bad for your mental health. We need to think about family. About family, I couldn't hold back my bitter laughter. And where was my family when you threw me out on the street at 18? When I slept in my Honda Civic for several weeks until I found a studio apartment? Trying to finish high school when Amanda took my college fund. That's different. Dad muttered. You behaved irresponsibly. Irresponsibly. Because I didn't want to slave away in your accounting firm. Because I wanted to go to Georgia Tech instead of inheriting your business. The business that you successfully ran into the ground. What are you talking about? He roared. The business that you buried. I cut him off. That went bankrupt because you wouldn't listen to anyone. His face turned red. How dare you? No. How dare you? I cut him off. You came to my home. You're trashing my life. And then you have the audacity to demand that I give my house to my sister. Amanda made a familiar face. You're just jealous that I have a real family. That I did everything right. Right, I took out my iPhone. My fingers froze over the document I'd been hiding for 10 years. Got pregnant at 19 to trap a man. Stole my college fund. That's right, enough. My mother jumped up. Pack your things. We're doing this whether you like it or not. Family comes first. I smiled genuinely. So much so that they shuddered. That's right. Mom, family comes first. That's why I bought this house with my own money. Money I got when Dad's company went bankrupt. You forgot about the trust fund that my grandfather had notarized in my name before your marriage. After the company collapsed, I was legally entitled to my share of the trust. Silence fell over the room. Even Amanda's brats stopped destroying everything around them. What trust fund? My father's voice was barely audible. I opened the PDF document on my phone and turned the screen towards them. Remember how you kicked me out? I was still listed as a beneficiary. When you ruined everything, I was entitled to compensation from Grandpa's trust. I just didn't tell you. Mom turned white. That's impossible. We cut you off from everything. You tried. But you forgot about Grandpa's trust fund, the one where I was listed as a silent beneficiary. When the firm went under, I got my share through the bankruptcy court. Kite a lot. Actually, Dad grabbed the phone, his hands shaking as he read. That's $385. Ling ling ling. That's exactly what this house cost. I finished. What a funny coincidence. Isn't it, Amanda? Opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. But it should have been divided. I have children. Children you had when you couldn't afford them. I reminded her. Children you used as leverage to take everything away from me. Just not this time. My house was bought with money that was legally due to me. And now everyone needs to leave. You can't do this. My mother's voice shook with rage. We are your family. I walked up to the front door and swung it open. No. You stopped being my family when you threw me out of your house. This isn't the end. My father growled, grabbing my mother's hand. I agree. I nodded. It's just the beginning. By the way, Amanda, check your lease agreement. I bought your apartment building last week through my LLC. The rent is going up. The looks on their faces as they left were worth the 10 years of waiting. When the door slammed shut, I looked around my house and finally felt at peace. They tried to break me, but instead they made me stronger. And now, standing in my own home, bought with money they never knew existed, I was finally free. I took out my phone and sent a short text to my lawyer. Let's get started. Then I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's watching those who tried to drown, you realize they never really knew you at all. The next few days promised to be intense. But first I had to clean the walls. The marker scribbles wouldn't erase themselves. The consequences weren't long in coming. A couple of hours after they left, my phone exploded like fireworks on the 4th of July. Text messages, voicemails, even emails, all with demand, threats, or pathetic attempts to negotiate. Amanda's messages were the most hysterical. You can't raise the rent. I have children. This is cruel. Even for you. Mom and Dad are furious. Fix this now. I read each one with Olympic calm. Before, these words would have driven me into a corner of guilt and self-torture. Now they only confirmed what I had always known. They only wanted my benefits. Not me. The most interesting message came from Michael Stevens. My father's former business partner just found out about the trust fund payout. Smart move. Keeping quiet for so many years. Your dad called me screaming. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime, I grinned. Michael was the only one who warned my father about the impending bankruptcy. He also hinted to me to protect my rights to the trust even after being kicked out. My mother's phone rang. After 10 rings, it went to voicemail, but then immediately started ringing again. This time I answered, "How dare you?" Her voice was on the verge of hysteria. "After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me," I interrupted in an icy tone. "You threw me out at 18. Gave my college fund to Amanda. Or maybe you mean showing up at my house demanding I give it to your favorite daughter. We gave you life." She was crying now, but I'd seen through those crocodile tears long ago. "You raised me, then threw me out because I didn't want to be your puppet. It's funny how I only become your family when you need something." A pause. Then her voice became sickeningly sweet. "Let's talk about this. Come over for dinner tomorrow. We'll discuss it calmly." "No thanks. I have plans. Plans with whom you don't have anyone." I laughed. "That's where you're wrong. Mom, I have myself. And that's more than enough." The next day I met with Sarah Mitchell, my attorney, a sharp-tongued woman who helped me with the trust fund payout years ago. "They're trying to challenge the trust distribution," she said, shuffling through papers. "Your father claims he wasn't properly notified about the bankruptcy proceedings." He was. I have the certified mail receipt from 10 years ago. He just decided to ignore it. Like he ignored all the bankruptcy warnings from his accountant. She smiled wickedly. "You really thought this through, didn't you? I learned from the best manipulators. I just use their methods for protection, not harm." We spent the next hour reviewing the documents. The trust distribution was ironclad. My ownership of the house and the apartment building where Amanda lived was indisputable. "By the way," Sarah added as I was about to leave, Your sister's lease history. The previous property management company left interesting notes about late payments and property damage. I nodded. Let me guess, every time she played the single mother card. Right on target. We could start eviction proceedings. I thought about it. No. Just strict contract enforcement from now on. No late payments. No excuses for damages. She wants to be treated like family. Good. Family doesn't take advantage of family. Right. When I left the law office, I found Amanda by my Tesla Model Y. She must have been staking out my house and followed me, typical behavior for her. She looked terrible, red eyes. The whole pitiful victim routine flowing. Please. She began. You can't do this. The children, I raised my hand. Stop hiding behind your kids. It's disgusting. I have no choice. I'm a mother. I have to protect them. No. You have to raise them properly. Teach them not to be parasites who think the world owes them everything. Teach them that actions have consequences. She stepped closer, whispering. I'm going to tell everyone about the abortion. I froze. This was supposed to remain our secret from when we were still close. Before she changed, before she took everything from me. Go ahead, I said, surprised at my own calm. Tell them. Tell them how you drove me to Planned Parenthood. How you held my hand. How you swore to keep it secret because you understood I couldn't have a baby at 17. Tell them how you used that same understanding to guilt mom and dad into giving you my college fund. She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. You're a monster. No. I'm honest. For the first time in my life, I'm being completely honest. And it feels amazing. I got into my car, rolled down the window for the last word. Rent is due next Friday. On time and in full. Or we'll have a different conversation. On the way home, I drove past my parents' house in Mariette. Dad's pickup truck was there. Mom was visible in the window, probably calling everyone in her contact list, spinning her version of events. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael Stevens. Your father is trying to turn old business contacts against you. He doesn't know that most of them lost money because of his poor decisions. They're actually on your side. I smiled, turning onto my street in Buckhead. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on my beautiful house. My house, bought with money that was rightfully mine, money they had no idea about. Inside, I walked through each room, touching the walls, the furniture, everything I had chosen myself. In the kitchen, I finally scrubbed away the last of the marker scribbles. In their place, I hung the framed house deed, a reminder of where I came from and how far I'd traveled. My phone lit up again. Text from mom, family dinner tomorrow. Attendance mandatory. Let's discuss recent events and find a solution that works for everyone. I carefully typed my response. Sorry. Can't make it. I'm having the house professionally cleaned tomorrow. You know, the house you tried to steal that I bought with my trust fund money. Give my love to Amanda's kids. Hope they enjoy the apartment while they still have it. Then I blocked all of them. Poured myself some wine. Sat by the panoramic windows and watched the stars appear above my sanctuary. Let them scheme. Let them plot. Let them try to guilt me into submission. I'd spent 10 years building my defenses. Planning. Preparing for this moment. They thought they could bulldoze into my life and take what was mine. They would soon understand how cruelly mistaken they were. The next morning I woke up to find my yard littered with U-Haul boxes. Dozens of them piled haphazardly on my property. Some were already soaked from the overnight rain. There was a bright yellow sticky note on my door. Since you won't answer your phone, we're moving in. Family doesn't need permission. Amanda. I stood in the doorway with my coffee and laughed out loud. They didn't know me at all. The Clayton County Sheriff's deputies arrived half an hour later. I'd already downloaded the security camera footage and filed a report online. So Deputy Martinez arrived almost immediately. Morning. Domestic dispute. Just unwanted delivery. I replied, handing over copies of the restraining order paperwork and the trespassing report I'd filed. He nodded, understanding immediately. While we waited for backup, I explained the attempted house takeover and the escalating threats. He took notes, shaking his head in disbelief. You sure you want to press charges? He asked. Though the answer was obvious. Absolutely. It's time they learned about consequences. As if on cue, 3 cars screeched into my driveway. Mom, Dad, and Amanda with her kids jumped out, ready for battle, but froze at the sight of the patrol cars. What have you done? Mom screamed, trying to push past an officer. We're her family. We have rights here. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, you have no rights here. This is private property. And you're trespassing. We're trespassing. Dad went ballistic. This is my daughter, yes. I called from the porch. Your daughter who you kicked out, who you abandoned, who owns this house and doesn't want you here. Amanda pushed forward, using her kids as human shields again. Please. We have nowhere else to go. The apartment, I interrupted. The one you haven't paid rent on for 3 months. The one with documented damages totaling $5. $500, that apartment. She hesitated. How do you know about you bought my building? I researched all the maintenance reports, all the complaints, all the bounced rent checks. Did you think I wouldn't investigate, Mom? Tried a different approach. Her voice becoming syrupy. Sweetie, let's work this out. We're family, blood is thicker than water. Funny you should mention blood, I said, pulling out my phone. Remember last week when you said I was all alone, no real family? Well, I have something to show you. I held up the photo. My mother's face went white. In the picture, her dad and Michael Stevens 20 years ago at my biological father's funeral. What? Where did you get this? Dad stammered. Michael gave it to me right after he told me the truth about my biological father. The partner you forced out. The one who actually founded the company, my real father. The silence was deafening. Even the deputies seemed transfixed by this revelation. That's why my grandfather created the trust in my name. I continued. He knew the truth. He was protecting my inheritance from you. Dad lunged forward. But 2 officers intercepted him. You're lying, Michael is lying. DNA doesn't lie, I said calmly. And neither do the original incorporation documents showing how you forced my father out. Stole his company. And then destroyed it. The trust fund payout I received was always rightfully mine. Amanda's kids were crying. Scared and confused. I felt sorry for them. It wasn't their fault. Their mother was like this. Deputy Martinez. I turned to him. I want to file charges for illegal dumping, criminal trespass, harassment, and I need a restraining order immediately. You can't. Mother was really crying now. This will ruin our reputation. How did you ruin mine? I asked quietly. How did you destroy my real father's company? No. Mom, you did this to yourselves. The next hour passed in a blur of paperwork, hysteria, and finally blessed silence when they were escorted off my property. The boxes were impounded as evidence. Though I doubted Amanda had packed anything valuable, it was all for show, like their entire lives. That evening I sat in my home office, looking at old photos Michael had brought me. My real father's face smiled back at me. I had his eyes, his smile. All these years I'd felt like a stranger in that family. Now I understood why. Michael called around dinner time. They're at my doorstep demanding I confess to lying. Seriously, yeah. He won't do it. Your father was my best friend. Watching them treat you like garbage was torture. But I had to wait until you were ready to know the truth. I smiled, touching the photograph. Thank you, Michael, for everything. Don't thank me yet. He chuckled. Wait until they find out about your father's other trust funds, the ones that become available when you turn 30 next month. I hung up and went to the window. The street was quiet. No sign of the morning's drama. In the distance, Atlanta's skyline twinkled, the same city where I'd once spent nights in my car, determined to survive on my own. Sarah sent a text. Court granted protective order for 3 years. No contact. No approaching you or your property. Amanda's eviction notice will be served tomorrow. Your parents will be arraigned by Friday. Some would call it cruel to destroy a family. But were they my family? They were people who took everything from me, including the truth about who I am. I pulled out the last photo from Michael, my real father holding me as a baby, his eyes full of love. There was writing on the back, my daughter, who will someday know the truth. Everything I built was for you. So, Dad, I thought, raising my glass to the photograph, I finally know the truth. And I've built something for myself too. The sun was setting over my beautiful home, casting shadows where hours earlier my fake family had staged their final performance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles. But tonight, I was safe, surrounded by truth, protected by law, and finally free. I stood in the garden, tending the roses my biological father had loved so much. Michael had helped me plant them, telling stories as we worked the Georgia clay. Each bloom was a connection to a past I hadn't known, a legacy I'd finally claimed. The neighborhood had changed over the past year. Amanda's eviction became neighborhood gossip, the mother of 3 caught in a family fraud scheme. She moved to Alabama, living with some distant relative. The kids sometimes sent me innocent Facebook messages through their school accounts. They seemed to be doing better away from their mother's influence. Linda and Robert, I no longer called them. My parents faced the consequences. The harassment charges led to community service, and the revelation of my true parentage destroyed their carefully constructed social standing. Last I heard, they'd sold their house and moved to Florida, fleeing the whispers and judgment they'd once so generously bestowed on others. Michael became my real family, filling the role of the father I'd never known. He brought old home videos, letters, photographs, pieces of my real father's life that helped me understand who I was and where I came from. Your father would be proud, he said one evening, watching me work in my home office on my expanding cybersecurity firm, the same type of company my biological father had dreamed of building until Robert forced him out. You have his spirit, his determination. The Ring doorbell chimed, a familiar sound that no longer frightened me. Opening it, I saw Sarah with a thick manila envelope. It's ready. She smiled, handing it to me. The final trust fund has been released. Everything your father left is now yours. Free and clear. Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting, dated 20 years ago. Dear daughter, if you're reading this, it means Michael told you the truth. And you found your way to your legacy. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from Robert and Linda's manipulations. But I made sure to secure your future. The company you'll build, the strength you'll show, that's all you. Money and trust funds are just tools. Your real inheritance is your spirit, your resilience, your ability to rise above those who try to break you. I didn't get to watch you grow up, but I always believed that someday you'd understand who you really are. Love, always. Dad, tears rolled down my cheeks. Michael hugged my shoulders. He thought of everything. Didn't he? Yes. I nodded. He was always 10 steps ahead. Just like you. The final trust fund added another $550. 000 to my assets. But it wasn't about the money, it was about recognition. About understanding. My real father had loved me so much that he'd taken care of me even after death. That evening I hosted a small dinner party. Michael, Sarah, Deputy Martinez, now a good friend, and several other people who'd helped me along the way, sitting on my deck, surrounded by my father's roses. I finally felt complete. Michael raised his glass. To new beginning. And to family, the ones we choose, not the ones who choose to use us. I looked at all these people, my chosen family, and felt something I'd never experienced with my so-called blood relatives' unconditional acceptance. They had tried to break me, to remake me in their image, to steal what was rightfully mine. Instead, they had set me free to discover who I really was. The sun was setting over the garden, bathing my father's roses in golden light. I smiled, finally understanding the truth. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't your real family. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself, and sometimes, just sometimes, the truth sets you free in ways you never expected. I was my father's daughter, strong, resilient, and finally free. Story 2. I returned home late in the evening, tired after work. I dreamed only of having dinner and going to bed. But my iPhone kept buzzing non-stop. First my mother, then my father, then my sister. I decided not to pick up, but eventually gave in and called back. My mother asked me in an excited voice to come urgently. We need to talk. It's important for the family. I thought something serious had happened and drove over to see them. When I entered my parents' house in suburban Chicago, they were already waiting for me at the kitchen table. A coffee pot, store-bought cookies from Jewel Osco, tension on their faces. I sat down and waited for an explanation. My father began with a long speech about how family is the most important thing, that we need to help each other, that true support is tested by deeds, not words. I listened, not understanding where the conversation was heading. And then, after a long introduction, my father said something that threw me off balance. You'll give the condo to your sister, and you can move back home. I froze, as if I hadn't heard correctly. What I asked again, but he repeated the same thing, even more confidently, and my mother supported him with a nod. My sister was sitting next to me, her eyes downcast, but I noticed how the corners of her lips twitched in a satisfied smile. They were waiting for my reaction, and at that moment I was trying to collect my thoughts, because they were talking about my downtown Chicago condo, the very one I had been paying the mortgage on for several years with Wells Fargo, putting aside every penny, limiting myself in everything. I remembered how I carried heavy bags from Whole Foods, counting my change, just to make the next $2, $800 monthly payment. I remembered sleepless nights at my second job delivering for DoorDash. It was mine. The result of my efforts, my nerves, my sacrifices, the $380, 000 purchase price, the 20% down payment I'd saved for years, the endless paperwork with the bank. And now my parents had simply decided that I have to give everything to my sister. You're a man. My mother intervened. It's easier for you. You'll earn more. But it's hard for her without a place. She's a girl. She needs to be settled. I felt everything boiling inside. Why is it harder for her than for me? Why should her comfort cost me years of my life? But arguing with them at that moment seemed pointless. They were sure they were right, as if their decision was not up for debate. My father added, "Are you going to go against the family? Family is sacred. A real man sacrifices for his loved ones." These words sounded like a sentence. I felt like I was being driven into a corner. In their eyes, I was obligated. Obligated because I was the eldest son. Obligated because I was strong. I have to. Because it's right. But where were they when I was working nights at Amazon warehouses to save for this condo? Where was their support when I was sitting around without days off? Collecting every dollar from my Uber shifts, I looked at my sister, and her satisfied expression made me even more angry. She didn't even try to object. She didn't even say no. I won't take it. She was comfortable keeping quiet and letting her parents do all the dirty work for her. I stood up from the table, trying to control my voice so as not to break into a scream. The words came hard. But I said, the condo is mine. I paid it off. I don't owe anyone anything. Silence hung in the room, which was immediately broken by indignant voices. My mother gasped as if I had said something monstrous. My father began to shout that I was selfish, that I had forgotten who had raised and fed me, that I had to help the family, My sister pretended that she didn't like listening to the argument, but I saw how she hid the satisfied gleam in her eyes. I felt the walls pressing in, the heaviness growing in my chest. But at the same time, something inside me broke for the first time. I realized that if I give in and agree now, I will lose not only the condo, but also my self-respect. My parents will take advantage of my weakness again and again. And my sister will happily accept all the gifts that I am obliged to give for the sake of the family. I realized that I no longer want to be that convenient son who always agrees. I left my parents' house with a buzzing in my head and a heavy heart. It was dark outside. The streetlights illuminated the empty sidewalks of our Naperville neighborhood, and I walked to my Honda Civic. Trying to put everything I had heard into perspective, the feeling of betrayal burned from within. It seemed to me that I had lost not only trust in my loved ones, but also the very idea of family as a support. But at the same time, along with the pain came a new feeling: determination. For the first time, I clearly understood that I have boundaries, and I have to protect them, even if it means standing up to my own parents. After that conversation, I couldn't get over it for several days. At work at the marketing firm downtown, everything was falling apart. My thoughts kept returning to those words that were spoken at my parents' kitchen table. Give the condo to your sister, and move back home yourself. I caught myself endlessly replaying these phrases in my head, and anger overwhelmed me with renewed vigor. After all, I was proud that I was able to earn money myself, qualify for a mortgage with my credit score, and secure housing without anyone's help. I'd even used a VA loan benefit from my Army service. And now they just want to take all of this away. And not some strangers, but those whom I always considered the closest. In the evening, my mother called. Her voice was soft, but there was a note of pressure in it, familiar from childhood. Honey, what are you doing? Think about it. It really is hard for your sister. She has a future, a family ahead of her. You don't want her to end up renting some crummy apartment in a bad neighborhood. I was silent. My mother continued to persuade me. You are young, strong. You always succeed in everything. But she is fragile. She needs to be settled. You understand? For her sake, it's like doing it for yourself. We're a family. With every word she said, I felt sick. It was not a conversation, but complete manipulation. The next day, my father came, without calling. He just showed up at my Lincoln Park condo door. He sat down in my IKEA chair and started to pressure me. I'm telling you as a man to a man, if you are a real son, you will do the right thing. Your sister should live in the condo. And you? Well, you can live somewhere else. We're not throwing you out on the street. We're offering you to come home. You'll have a roof over your head. Everything will be like before. And let your sister settle in your place. His confidence was unsettling. He spoke as if my consent had already been decided, and I was just being difficult. I tried to object, saying that the condo was my money, my efforts, my life. But my father only smirked. Money. And who fed you all your childhood? Who paid for your college at University of Illinois? Do you think that was free? Now it's your turn to give. Family is a circle. Son, we gave to you. Now you give to us. A wave of rage rose in my chest. Is parental care a transaction? Did they raise me to guilt trip me later? I noticed that my sister hadn't even tried to intervene all this time. She appeared briefly, bringing coffee to my father, or passing by the room. Casting a quick glance at me, I saw joy and anticipation in her eyes. She already felt like the owner of my condo, and this burned inside me the most. If she had had even a drop of conscience, she would have refused this idea. But no. It was convenient for her to remain silent and wait for her parents to do all the work for her. After my father left, I sat in the empty condo for a long time, looking at the walls, the furniture I had chosen myself from Target and West Elm, the things I had bought with my own hands. I remembered how my college friends had helped with moving in, how I had spent weekends at Home Depot and dreaming about how cozy it would be. All of this suddenly seemed fragile, as if someone was going to snatch my life out of my hands. A couple of days later, there were more calls. This time, my mother and father were together on speakerphone. Their voices sounded almost threatening. You have to. If you refuse, you will betray the family. We did not raise you like this. You will become a stranger. Is money really more important to you than your family? These words cut to the heart. I did not want to fight, did not want to break off relations, but I could not sacrifice my life for the sake of my sister's whim either. Two feelings were fighting inside: the desire to keep the peace and the understanding that if I gave in, they would simply crush me. I increasingly caught myself thinking that my parents never considered me equal. For them, I was always obliged to help, give in, sacrifice. And my sister, on the contrary, is the one who is allowed everything, who gets it without effort. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. If I don't set a boundary now, there will never be one. In the evening, I gathered my thoughts and sent a text message to my parents. The condo is mine. I'm not going to give it away. Please don't bring this up again. There was no answer for a long time. And then a short message came from my father. Got it. So we'll have to talk more seriously. These words sounded like a threat. For the first time in my life, I was truly afraid. Not for the condo, but for the fact that my parents were ready to go all the way to break me. After that message, the atmosphere between me and my parents became icy. They almost stopped calling. And if they texted, it was only dry phrases like, "Come over. Let's talk." Or, "Can you still change your mind?" But behind this external silence, I felt the pressure growing. It was in every word they said, in every pause, in every glance of my sister when we accidentally ran into each other at the Starbucks near their house. One weekend, I finally decided to visit them. The thought was spinning in my head. Maybe I'll be able to calmly explain myself, put everything in its place. But as soon as I crossed the threshold of their house, I realized that there would be no calm conversation. There were already some legal documents on the dining room table, and Mom and Dad were sitting opposite, looking as if they were waiting for the accused to appear in court. My sister settled down next to them. Her smug smile only increased the tension. My father started first. "We thought about it for a long time. You are stubborn. Of course. But you should understand that your sister needs the condo. We even contacted a lawyer from Johnson & Associates. He said that we could draw up a quitclaim deed. You would sign it, and everything would be fair and legal." I felt the blood rush to my face. They had gone so far as to prepare the papers. They hadn't even asked me in advance. Hadn't even thought about the fact that I might be against it. For them, everything was decided. I abruptly pushed the stack of papers away and said that I didn't intend to sign anything. Mom immediately spoke in a soft voice, trying to ease the tension. "Honey, you don't understand. This is for the sake of the family. You live alone anyway. And she and her fiancé need a place. You will still have a chance to earn money. You have everything ahead of you. But she needs to be settled now." My sister sat silently, but her eyes were shining. In her mind, she was already moving into my walls, putting up her furniture from Pottery Barn, hanging new curtains. At that moment, I realized that it was useless to argue. They don't hear me. They don't want to hear me. For them, I'm a resource, a tool that has to solve other people's problems. Everything I said about my efforts, about sleepless nights, about my student loans and mortgage payments, it all didn't matter to them. "You're a man," my father said again, "and it's your duty to sacrifice for the family." The words hit me like a whip. They wanted to make me feel guilty, like I was doing something terrible if I defended what was mine. I stood up, paced the room, trying to calm down. Inside, everything was seething. I wanted to scream. Why is her life more important than mine? Why should I give up everything I worked for just because I'm a man? But I held back. I said only one thing: I won't give up the condo. This is my home, and I fought for it. If you want to help my sister, help her yourselves. But I won't let you take away from me what I've worked for these last years. A heavy silence hung in the room. Mom started crying, as if I had done something terrible. My father looked at me coldly and harshly, as if I had become a stranger to him. My sister finally couldn't take it anymore and hissed, "You're selfish. You only think about yourself." Her words stung, but at the same time they gave me strength. After all, it was the truth. For the first time, I thought about myself, and not about other people's whims. I left, slamming the door, and didn't look back. The Chicago air outside seemed fresh and clean, as if I had escaped from a stuffy cage, but a heavy residue remained inside. I realized that there was now a real rift between me and my family. It was like a crack that would never be mended. I took the L train back to downtown and for the first time seriously considered that maybe my family was no longer a family in the sense that I understood it. And yet, with that realization came a sense of relief. I had stood firm. I didn't let myself be broken. And although new quarrels and new attempts at pressure were waiting for me ahead, I already knew that I would never give up what was mine. After that last meeting, I expected that my parents would try to return to the conversation, but time passed, and it was as if they had given up on me. My phone hardly rang. There was silence in our family WhatsApp group. Only rare short messages from my mother. "You could be kinder," or "Family is the main thing." "But you don't understand." I didn't answer. Every time the screen lit up, I felt a familiar wave of pain and resentment rise up inside me. But at the same time, I knew that if I started making excuses again, they would find a way to drag me back into their games. My sister felt like a winner. She demonstratively posted photos on Instagram, sometimes with an interior designer from Wayfair, sometimes outside Home Depot. Under each caption, it seemed like soon I'll be setting up my new nest. She behaved as if the condo was already hers, as if the issue had been resolved, and I was just getting in the way. Seeing this, I was only once again convinced that I had done the right thing. Giving them the condo would have meant completely erasing myself. But the silence was worse than the screaming. I caught myself missing home, missing my mother's lasagna, the evenings when we sat at the table with the whole family watching Cubs games, remembering my childhood years in Illinois, how my father taught me to ride a bike in the park, how my sister hid behind my back when she was scared at haunted houses during Halloween. All of this kept colliding with the present, with their cold eyes and demands. With the betrayal that became obvious, a few weeks later, I decided to reach out. I called my mother and suggested that we meet alone, without my father and sister. We met at a Panera near their house, and she looked older, tired. Her eyes were red, and her voice was shaking. "You've changed, honey," she said. "You have become hard, distant. I don't recognize you," I answered calmly. I simply learned to say no. Before, I always lived for you, for my sister, but now I want to live for myself. She was silent for a long time. Then she lowered her head, and I understood. She understood everything, but she could not admit it. After that meeting, I drove home in my Honda with a feeling of bitterness and liberation at the same time. Yes, my parents no longer saw in me that obedient son who always gives in, but it was now that I first felt like an adult who had the right to make his own decisions. In the evening, I opened the door to my Lincoln Park condo and looked around. The walls, the furniture, every little thing reminded me of the path I had taken. This was my space, my life, and I wasn't going to give it to anyone. Yes, I lost my family's trust. Perhaps some of the relationships with my parents can no longer be restored, but I have retained the most important thing: respect for myself. I realized that a real family is not those who demand sacrifices, but those who support you. And if my loved ones could not understand this, then this was their choice. And my choice is to live in such a way that I will never again allow anyone to take away from me what I fought for.